Where does your favorite NFL team rank entering 2025? Welcome, football fans, to a live edition of some BLV NFL rankings. In this video, I'm going to give you my honest opinion on your favorite team. Are they good? Do they suck? Or are they mid? In this video, I rank all 32 NFL teams from the worst to the best, number 32 to number 1, and I fit them inside a particular tier that I think best describes their 2025 season. So if that sounds good, Gronk, spike the like button, show your love. That's how more people find the BLV, find my rankings videos, and find our community. So like the video, and don't be a jabroni. Subscribe. Get in the comments. We haven't been live in a minute, so let me know how you're doing. Let me know how you're feeling. I'd love to hear from you guys and your opinions on my list. Just honestly love to hear from you guys and like what you're up to, because I haven't seen you in a minute. So if you haven't already, get in that comment section, man. So let's have some fun here, and let's talk some NFL tiers for 2025. Okay. So we have our tiers set up, as you can see. Ringham is the top tier. Self-explanatory. These teams will maybe receive a ring. Contenders. They're pretty damn good. They're definitely in the conversation for a ring. Watch out is a team that's another word for a dark horse. They might be really good, but there's something that's missing, or they're flying under the radar. Wild card is maybe they'll make the wild card. I don't know. Maybe they won't, but they're a wild card for sure. Like, I don't really know if they're great or if they're just good or if they're maybe a little overrated or underrated. Is the teams that they're in the middle somewhere, but there's something about them that is off. Mid at best is your ceiling is pretty low, but I'm pretty certain you won't suck, okay? I'm simply sorry that I can't rank you higher. I may actually like elements of your team, but I can't feel good enough to rank them higher with any confidence. And then booty is also self-explanatory, okay? It's what Caesar gets every day of the week. Okay, let's go, baby. Let's have some fun ranking every NFL team. Shout out to my homies in the chat. We've got, I don't know how to say your name, bro, but he left the first comment. I apologize. He was questioning my jawline, so shout out to you. That was pretty funny. I got a kick out of that one. Caesar said, "Good day, Big Al." What's up, Caesar? Caesar's in the chat. Big Al's in the chat. Jacob's in the chat. We got Spence in the chat. Thank you guys for joining in the chat. Appreciate you. We also got Wavy Wave in the chat. We've got the man, the myth, the legend, also the only Bengals fan that probably watches this channel in the chat as well. His name is Tyler Drake. We've got Jermari. Says, yo, he's back. What's up, Jermari? Tampa to the bowl. He's been commenting a lot lately on my videos. Everything Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the chat. So thank you guys. Shout out to all of you that have tuned in so far. And don't forget, like the video. Okay, let's get started. Let's get started with the rankings. At number 1, I guess we've got to rank these sorry Saints first. I apologize to any Saints fans out there. I'm sure that Tampa to the bowl will love this one. I think that the Saints are booty. I'm sorry. But the New Orleans Saints have maybe the most suspect quarterback situation in football in 2025, starting Tyler Shuck. They have a brand new rookie head coach in Kellen Moore, who might be pretty good at his job. And we'll see what he's able to do with the weapons that the Saints do offer and a young offensive line that does have some upside. I think if there is a bright spot for the Saints this year, it's potentially Kellen Moore. What can he stir up with Tyler Shuck? What can he get going with Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara, Kelvin Banks, Fuaga, this young offensive line, McCoy in the middle? So I think that the Saints have like some actual endearing elements, like elements of their team that I would be interested in, not so much for 2025 if I was a Saints fan, but to figure out what the elements of our team will be sticking around in the future. Like, what can we count on to build our team around in 2026, in 2027, right? Like, maybe those years, if Shuck is the guy, we could potentially build something here, okay? The defense is what I'm worried about. Like, the defense is the element of the team where I'm like, there's not a lot to be excited about here, right? The defensive line is old, and we kind of already know what those pieces are about. When you're talking about Carl Granderson being the best piece, I guess you could see maybe more development out of Brian Brzee, but like we kind of know what Chase Young is. We kind of know what Cam Jordan is. He's in a retirement home soon. Demario Davis, retirement home soon. You know, Tyrann Mathieu already went to the retirement home. And then we got Justin Reed, who is the weirdest signing of the offseason by a team that's trying to rebuild. Don't really get that one. Cornerback group, I guess, is one of the areas where Saints fans should be kind of also alarmed, but also intrigued. Like, okay, what do we have here? What's the future here? But also, like, do we have anyone, you know, that's even any good? Alontae Taylor, I guess, is a playmaker at nickel, but I feel like the Saints are going to have first pick, second pick, third pick, at least in that conversation, which is why I have them in the sorry category. Brandon Staley, also the defensive coordinator, as Taryn points out in the chat. Thank you for that. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he's proven to be a decent defensive coordinator at times, but certainly his head coaching gigs have left something to be desired. He also wasn't really impactful with the Niners last year either. So I don't know. We'll see on the whole Brandon Staley front. Okay. Next we have the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins are definitely not number one. Where are they, though? That's the question. They're not number one. But are they number 17? Number 24? Number 13? I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins at mid at best. I think we called it in the chat. Mid at best. I think there's too many holes on this team. I know that they signed a couple corners to try to plug the holes. You could argue, You could argue, You know, you could make that argument. Like, maybe they've got enough, but I kind of see them this is where I'd put them at mid at best. Because I think there's a realistic chance that they fall off. There's a realistic chance that they actually outright suck. Like, I think that's a chance. So I can't put them at because of that. I'd also say Tua is a constant liability to get injured, although he's productive when he plays. I'm very much worried about the tackle situation. That is dire. Their cornerbacks are still pretty bad. Jack Jones and Mike Hilton, as pointed out in the chat. Mike Hilton, he's a weird one because, like, he's constantly graded well, but he also can't cover at the same time. Jack Jones is like a home run waiting to happen for either team. Like, rather it's an interception or it's a touchdown. So we'll see how that goes. Safeties, they brought back Minkah Fitzpatrick to the Dolphins, trading Jalen Ramsey. We'll see how Minkah maybe plays a little bit better. I would expect in this system. I felt like the last couple of years he fell off just because he wasn't close enough to the ball or in a situation where he could make plays on the ball. Safety rankings coming soon, guys. Linebackers are actually very underrated. Defensive line has the potency to be pretty damn good if they're all healthy, but we've never seen Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb and all these guys healthy together. Zach Sealer just got a nice contract. But I'm worried about how the offensive line will impact Tua's health, how the offensive line is able to create holes for the running game and play with physicality, how this team is able to go throughout the year and stay physical, because they always fall off in November, December because they're too soft and they can't play in bad weather, and Tua's arm isn't capable of it. And then Mike McDaniel, what's his management of this team? Has he lost his way? Have teams figured out this offense, this scheme? Is Tyreek the same player? Is Waddle staying healthy? Like, there is a possibility Tyreek explodes again. There is a possibility that he explodes in a bad way. There's a possibility that Jalen Waddle is the best receiver on this team this year. There's a possibility that Devon Achane is the best running back in fantasy. There's a possibility he gets hurt after 2 games. There's also a possibility that they can't run the ball because they can't block anybody. So I just feel like this team is weird, and there's too many questions for them to actually calculate to a good team. So I have them at mid at best, okay? If you guys haven't figured out already, I'm not going to be a quick and brief with these breakdowns of these teams. I'm going to give you my actual thoughts of what's going on in my mind right now. So if you enjoy that, then subscribe if you haven't. All right, the Ravens. Okay, Baltimore. Where do we have you? Baltimore, we are going to put you in the ring 'em category. That's right. I just saw a clip earlier of Mike Green dusting the right tackle of the Baltimore Ravens for a sack. Mike Green, X factor of the NFL this year. 2nd round pick just because he was an absolute head case, but should have been a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. The Ravens might have the best pass rush they've had in many years. Mike Green, Owe, and Kyle Van Noy with Justin Madubuike. That's a pretty impressive front, Travis Jones included. And then Roquan Smith behind that. Their secondary, I will be ranking secondaries at some point. Probably might be the most stacked secondary in the NFL. Jair Alexander already picking off Lamar Jackson in practice. Marlon Humphrey. I'm really excited for Nate Wiggins. I think that's going to be a really, really good secondary, really good defense. The offense was the best in football last year. They can run the ball. They arguably have the best quarterback in the league in Lamar Jackson. They have a pretty good offensive line, but where they're really good is their size, their athleticism, their physicality. They're able to run you over. Their pass protection's a bit spotty at times, but they've got all the weapons. I mean, they added DeAndre Hopkins. Likely is a bit banged up. We'll see how he comes back, but you got Derrick Henry. You've got Mark Andrews still. You've got Zay Flowers. You've got Rashad Bateman. So this is the best receiving core as well as Lamar's career. This is a defensive coordinator, not in year 1, but year 2 now, so they should play closer to how they played at the end of the year as opposed to the beginning. Their offensive coordinator is one of the best in football, and Todd Monken, so there's really no holes on this team. If you pick this team to make the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl, I would not deny it at all. I would maybe do it myself. So I totally understand this is one of the best teams in terms of like feels of a roster, a quarterback situation, a coaching staff that hasn't won a Super Bowl that I can remember. Like, this team feels like a team that should be at least in the AFC Championship. So the Ravens are in the ring 'em category. Next, we've got the Cincinnati Bengals. Just as your man Kevin Durkant enters the chat, it's his favorite team in football, the Cincinnati Bengals. Shout out to Nico Collins, the GOAT, in the chat. That is a very factual statement. What else we got here? SG Thomas in the chat. Panthers fan. Panthers Nation. Maverick in the chat. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you as well. What else we have? Stars and Knights. Thank you guys for joining. Okay. Ron, thanks for joining. Okay. So the Bengals. You could put them in wild card. Question mark. Are they a wild card? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. Watch out. This is a team that's dangerous. They've got elements that can make you have nightmares. Okay. Contenders. Contenders, they are going to be in it to the end. Or do you think the Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl this year? I'm going to put them in watch out because I think that their defense, and I'm going to start with the defense because we already have questions about the defense in the chat. Their defense, I do believe, will be better this year. I do think that switching the defensive coordinator is going to be helpful. I do think that they have some underrated pieces, especially up front. TJ Slayton at D tackle, I think, is really going to help them against the run. He led the NFL in run stop win rate last year from the Packers. I think that adding a first-round pick freak show in Shamar Stewart should help. I do actually like their edge rotation with guys like Osai mixed in there. I expect Hendrickson to be back fully. And then some of their other defensive linemen, like Chris Jenkins Jr. and McKinley and all these guys, they're year 2, so they're a little bit more experienced. Miles Murphy in that mix as well. I do think that the coaching could develop some of those guys maybe a little bit better, just a switch in scheme or a switch in task or whatever. Like they could get a little bit better because they're not untalented. Some of these guys are first, second round picks. Linebacker wise, Logan Wilson is back and he's healthy and he's a good player. And Oren Burks played really well last year. He got signed to the Bengals. They also drafted a second round pick. So I feel like they at least have more depth at that position. Jermaine Pratt was pretty bad last year. Maybe Burks can be better than him. We'll see what Dax Hill becomes. I think he's expected to take the place of Mike Hilton in the nickel. Maybe that makes them more athletic at that spot. We'll see. But I'm really excited for DJ Turner. He got hurt last season. I think he'll be their number 1 corner. And hopefully Cam Taylor-Britt can bounce back. But looking at their defense, I do think that there are players that are questions. Geno Stone, Cam Taylor-Britt, guys that have played well in the past in rather their situation or other situations that need to play better this year. But I just don't think they're going to be as bad. I think their defensive front is overall better. I think that makes them better. And I think that their secondary will just be a little bit better this year. The offense is obviously potent. I mean, they just added Noah Fant. So now they have Mike Gesicki and Noah Fant and, a plethora of other tight ends as well. And then wide receiver, they have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Yossi Voss. Burton looks good in camp. They have the Mims in year 2, so I'm expecting some good things there. Maybe a little bit of development. And they did switch their guards. One of the worst guard positions last year. Hopefully a little bit better. I'm not a big Patrick Lucas guy, but I do think he was at least a little bit better than Alex Kappa was last year. And then we'll see what the rookie can give them as well. But Chase Brown's a stud. I do like that they also added some depth in the draft at running back. So just going through the entire team, like Joe Burrow, stud. Joe Burrow, leader. Joe Burrow, healthy. Jamar Chase, best receiver in football. This is the best passing game in football. This is when they enter the dance, when they get to the playoffs, if they get to the playoffs, nobody wants to play them because they are a team that won't back down. Like the Chiefs don't want to play this team. The Bills don't want to play this team. The Ravens don't want to play this team because every single time they play them, it's a tight game because of that quarterback, because of they're not championship experience, but playoff experience, big game moments, big game experience for many of these guys over the last few years. And I just think if they get a little bit luckier, they should be in the playoffs. So I think I have them right now around 11-10 wins. I think at worst, they're like an 8 or a 9 win team. So I think they're more likely than not to get back to the playoffs. And once they get to the playoffs, look out. Watch out. Okay, the Denver Broncos are next. I'm going to put the Broncos in wild card ? So I think they could be a wild card team, but I'm not 100% sure. So the trickiness with the Broncos is not the talent on the team because they have a really talented team. In fact, I would argue that they have a more talented roster than the Bengals. Like, their defense is obviously top tier talent-wise. Their offensive line is top tier talent-wise. And they do have a couple different playmakers this year. I wouldn't blame you, as being pointed out in the chat, that they could be in the watch-out category. I probably wouldn't put them any higher than that. But here's my problem. And Cincinnati did beat them last year, by the way, near the end of the season. Denver, I am a little concerned about how teams now will play them. So, like, I'm worried about the defense, like, in terms of regression. Like, they didn't get injured last year, really on either side of the ball. The offensive line, the defense, they had very few injuries. They faced a weaker schedule. They faced a lot of backup quarterback. They faced a situation where, like, they were able to take advantage of it. They had an offense where a lot of screens, a lot of quick passes, a lot of like RPOs, yak kind of stuff. Like, I just don't know if they're going to be able to keep that up or if that's like something that defenses will be able to slow them down, And I also don't know if Bo Nix is going to be one of these guys that is on the incline and the come up, or if he is like one of these like okay but not great quarterbacks. That because he is an older prospect who came into the NFL more prepared and more molded for the game. Like, he was already 24, 25 years old. He had like the most attempts in college football history, the most games in college football history, at least in that discussion. Like, he played a ton. So he was already ready to play. And I think they kind of took teams by surprise. They kind of got them last year. So this year, it's like, will they be able to do that again? Will the offensive line be able to be 100% healthy again? Will the defense be basically 100% healthy again? And it's not a matter of talent, because I believe in the talent on the defense. I think they have 2 top 32 edge rushers. I think they have 2 top 32 interior defensive linemen. I think they have a top 10 linebacker in Dre Greenlaw now. They've got one of the better safety tandems on paper with Jones and Hufanga. They have the best corner in football in Pat Surtain. They have a young nickel in Barron now in the first round. They've got Riley Mott. I mean, their defense is stacked. Their defense is pretty awesome. But I'm just worried that, like, I'm worried about regression, period. Like, they feel like one of those teams that is not going to be able to fully replicate everything that we saw from them last year, whether it be the offensive line performance, the defensive performance, the sacks, whatever it may be. But I do love Sean Payton. I do really like Vance Joseph. I think he does a great job with this defense. And we'll see, you know, with Cortland Sutton, who's the other receiver that steps up? Like, is it Marvin Mims? Is it Pat Bryant? Who is it? Like, who's it going to be? Evan Ingram? I do believe in Harvey. I think he's going to be a good player. But I don't know. Like, there's just elements about them where I'm like a little bit worried that they won't be able to replicate what they did last year. That's kind of what I'm worried about. But that being said, they're like right on the fringe for me of the playoffs. Like, they're rather just going to make it or just going to miss. And I also kind of feel like the reason I didn't put them in watch out, right, is because I don't see the ceiling with this team that exists with the Bengals. Because the Bengals have a legitimate ace on offense and at quarterback. While the Broncos may have potentially a very good defense, I don't think the offense is going to be nearly on that level. I think the offense is kind of the upside for them is like just getting in the top 10 as an offense, in my opinion. It's like the 7th or 8th best offense. I don't necessarily see the ceiling of their team being as good as the Bengals if their defense figures it out. So that's kind of like where I see the Broncos there. Then we have the New York Giants. I'm going to put the Giants in. Okay, this is tough. I think you could make an argument for I'm sorry. You could make an argument for the booty category. I'm going to put them in the I'm sorry, though. And the reason for that is because I'm sorry they have to face this schedule that they have to face. Because I think as a talent, they have some pretty intriguing elements. Like, their front seven is one of the best in football, right? They have Dexter Lawrence, who could legitimately be the best defensive tackle in football this year. They have Abdul Carter, who's already taking over practice. They have Brian Burns, who's a stud. They have Kayvon Thibodeau. They have Chauncey Golston. They have all this talent in the front. And then they have Bobby Okereke, who's awesome. And then they have Javon Holland now and Paulson and Debo, so that should help their secondary. Even Newbin could take a step forward at safety as well. So you look at the defense, and legitimately, they could be a top 10, top 5 even defense. Offensively, though, the quarterback position is extremely suspect. Like I said in my one video, reacting to the win totals. They don't have a quarterback, but they don't have a quarterback. They have Malik Neighbors, but they don't have a quarterback. And that's my problem. Like, Russell Wilson is not any good anymore. I'm sorry. He's not. Jameis gets me excited, but being realistic, okay? Jackson Dart, I wasn't overly high on as a prospect. maybe he'll get better, but he's not a guy that's going to take you to the promised land right now. I think like their offensive line is also bottom 6, bottom 7 in the NFL, bottom 5 in the NFL. And yes, they have Malik Neighbors, but I mean, I don't know, like backfield's kind of mediocre. Tight ends are below average. Like, receivers could be good, but I don't know, man. Like, when you don't have the quarterback, how are the receivers supposed to be that good, you know? So, I think they could upset some teams. I think that they could be better than we expect because of the defense. But I don't think that the ceiling is that outrageous. But because of the defense, I don't think the floor is that poor either. And because they have so many different options at quarterback, I think that's also like a good thing for their floor, where they probably will be a top 10 pick, but they could be closer to 10 potentially than 1, if that makes sense. Stockton says, Rams win it all if Stafford stays healthy. Guarantee. Guarantee. From Stockton Slap in the chat. Damn. Thank you for the super chat, sir. Appreciate that, man. Yeah, so we're going to keep it going. If you guys haven't already, 67 people in here. A lot of you guys aren't in the chat. I don't know why. Gronk spiked the like button, guys. Let's try to get those likes up so more people can find this channel and find this video. Okay, let's keep it rolling. Who's next? The Minnesota Skull Vikings are up next. The Vikings. Did I just give it away? Are they a I don't know. Is that also like the sound of the horn? They could, this team could be legitimately wild card question mark. Watch out. They could be, they could be legitimately in these 3 categories. Where do I want to put them? I'm going to put them in wild card question mark. Okay. So first of all, what scares me about this team? The quarterback, not knowing what he is. J.J. McCarthy. We've never seen him play in the NFL, so that gives me a little bit of uneasiness. Now, we were saying similar things about Sam Darnold, but I do think that this schedule and this division is even better than it was last year. I think you could make that argument. Now, what also scares me beyond J.J. McCarthy, because I think that has been talked about plenty, is the defense. I think the secondary is pretty concerning to some degree. They lost, one of their better safeties in Bynum. He left to the Colts. They're replacing their starting corners practically on the outside. I think Isaiah Rodgers is expected to be one. Blackman might be the other on the outside. Blackman didn't play last year. And then at nickel, of course, they have Murphy, who's really good. But I'm a little scared against good quarterbacks and good receiving cores and good passing games. They also led the NFL in turnovers last year, which is hard to replicate, although if anyone can, it's Brian Flores because of the chaos that he stirs up. I'm also a little bit concerned about like some of the signings they made scream ceiling, but also like pretty volatile, like Hargrave off of a major injury. Jonathan Allen off of his worst season of his career. Will Fries, who's injured often. Ryan Kelly, who's injured often. So while I have kind of talked glowingly about those additions, and I do see the upside of those additions that they've made, I do think there's also downsides. I don't think all of them will work out. Jordan Mason, I think, is a good floor addition for them. I don't think he's going to change their backfield, but I do think it gives them some depth at running back. I'd still expect Aaron Jones to be the guy at the end of the day. I don't think Jordan Mason is a more talented player, even at this age that Aaron Jones is at. Plus, Jordan Mason doesn't give you much in the passing game. So I still expect there to be a pretty good split there, but I do expect Aaron Jones to be the guy when it's all said and done. Jefferson is obviously, one of the best in football. Addison is pretty good. Hawkinson is really good. The O-line, if healthy, could be awesome. Like, I ranked it in the top 5. So I clearly have a lot of faith there. I clearly have a lot of faith in Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores. I love their linebackers. You know, I will be ranking linebackers soon, just so you guys know. Blake Cashman's going to be very high on that list. And their edges are really good too. I think like, I don't know if they're going to be able to beat a lot of the better teams if they have the worst quarterback. So that's kind of what I'm kind of scared about. Like, they could be in a lot of close games this year. And last year they were in a lot of close games. I think they were 9-1, or they won 9 close games last year, something like that. So are they going to be able to replicate that? I would lean towards no. Like, I don't think they're going to win 13, 14 games like they did last year. They're probably going to win like 9 or 10, maybe 11, maybe 8. So I think they're going to be in that range. The team is talented. The coaching staff is talented. But I think there was a lot that happened last year that is not going to be replicatable. A lot like the Broncos, okay? Very similar formulas, right? So I think they probably, like, between them and the Packers, it will be an interesting race for me. I think the Vikings are the more talented, well-rounded team, but I think the Packers have more trustworthiness in their operation offensively because of, I think, Jordan Love and their overall balance on offense. They can lean on their run game, things like that, but the Packers have a worse defense. So that's kind of like the interesting question about those two teams. So, and another thing I will say about the Vikings is it feels like they're really good one year and then they're kind of mediocre the next year. That's also something that seemingly happens pretty constantly with them. But I will say I would believe in them more than I would disbelieve in them because I think there's enough reasons to believe in them. So I have them in the wild card-ish type of conversation. Rick says, I know my Browns are booty. Guess all I can hope for is the Jags wind up in the I'm sorry or the booty category as well. Ugh. Thanks, Rick, for the super chat. Hey, thank you guys. We got 2 super chats. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, man. And we will talk about the Browns when we get there, and we'll talk about the Jags when we get there. So I won't spoil anything, but yeah, thank you for the super chat. I don't think, Durkant, that the close games argument is overblown when you are a team that doesn't have an elite quarterback. I don't think it's overblown. I think that it's actually pretty realistic. Because I don't think, especially with a new quarterback, how replicatable will that be? I don't know. Now, if you have Patrick Mahomes and you keep winning close games, I kind of understand why. But J.J. McCarthy, I don't know yet. Maybe he's the next coming of Patrick Mahomes. We'll see. Okay, the Los Angeles Rams. Now, the Rams, like, beginning of the offseason, I had myself thinking, like, could this be the team that I picked to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC? And then as the season starts to get closer, I'm worried about Stafford. And, like, this could be a team where everyone has them in the playoffs, and it could be that team that doesn't get there because their quarterback's hurt for, like, half the year. Like, that could definitely be the team this year. Like, and then also their left tackle might not play because he has blood clots. And they just paid him a fresh contract. And you combine those 2 elements, that's like 2 of your 3 or 4 largest elements for success. Offensive line, left tackle performance, quarterback performance. Jimmy Garoppolo might be able to get this team like 7 or 8 wins. I wouldn't even be surprised by that. But would they still be a playoff team? So the Rams are interesting, man. I think because of my concerns, I will put them in the watch out category. I would have maybe previously had them in the contender category, but I'm just a little concerned about those things. So where I'm really excited is the defense, specifically the defensive line, but I think even the secondary could be better than people think. So the defensive line, they have obviously Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, Poona Ford. All 3 of those guys made my top 32 interior defensive linemen. That's pretty good. Okay, they also have 2 good edge players. Jared Verse is awesome. He was in my top 10. Byron Young wasn't too far off from the top 32. He was in the top 40. So they have an awesome front. And the linebackers are kind of not it. Like, that might be the weakness of their defense is their linebacking core, but I think that's kind of intentional. Their safeties are a little bit underrated. Kitchens was a ball hawk last year, and he's entering year 2. Lake, playing the nickel position, is a pretty good player. He's kind of like a safety, but he's a nickel. And then Curl impressed me in coverage last year. He's usually been known for more of his like box safety stuff. Witherspoon played like the best year of his career last year. I'm a little worried about Darius Williams because he's like old as dirt, but he was solid last year. He's always just been solid. But the defense, I think, could catapult from last year. I think a lot of people forget because by the end of the year, they were like a really good defense. But at the beginning of the year and like for most of the year, they were pretty bad. Like they were catastrophic for like at least half the year because they were so young. And I do think they'll be like a top half defense, if I had to guess. I don't think they're going to be dominant, but top half sounds about right. Offensively, I mean, it is going to come down to Stafford, and it's going to come down to Puka, who's another injury-prone player. Can he stay on the field? And it's going to come down to their left tackle play and all that stuff. McVay isn't quite the play caller I thought that he used to be, but he's still good. And the O-line as a whole is good, even if they're without their left tackle. I'm not a fan of their running back situation personally, but it's fine. I mean, they're if you look at their rush numbers last year, they're actually per play not very good. They're actually a bad run offense, but they do run the ball quite a bit. But where I'm really like excited is Devontae Adams with Puka Nacua. Even if Adams isn't the same player, I think he's marginally better than Cooper Kupp, and he's different from Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp were so similar that they would play the same position or the same role or the same route tree. Devontae Adams gives him more that Odell Beckham skill set. He could play outside and win on the outside, and that's going to give them a red zone threat that I don't think they had previously. You also throw in the rookie tight end who has a lot of athleticism they can involve on after the catch plays. So I think that if everything comes together for them, if the defense really takes that leap, if Stafford is healthy, if they're able to protect him, and if their weapons are healthy, yeah, they could go to the Super Bowl, right? I don't know if they'd win it, but they could go to the Super Bowl, and they have good enough coaching to be able to compete with anybody in that game. But at the same time, this is also a team that I think has a lower floor than people think because the last time they didn't make the playoffs, Stafford got hurt, and it derailed the entire season. So that's why I have the Rams in the watch out category. Kind of like the Bengals. Nobody really wants to play them if they get into the dance, and they can go all the way. All right. Next, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are next. Bucks NFL says Bucks ring 'em. I'm going to put the Bucks in watch out as well. So there's some elements that I think are really interesting and some elements that I'm worried about. So the worried about elements, there's some injuries and there's also some coaching. So first of all, Liam Cohen is gone. I, unlike some Bucks fans, am worried about that because Liam Cohen, I think legitimately is a top tier play caller. I think what he was able to do with the run game and the screen game last year is not something you easily replace. Okay, even if you do believe in their new offensive coordinator. Next, Todd Bowles to me is just not a very good game manager, and he makes critical in-game decisions that are negatives for the team. And that loses them a couple games a season. Like last year, it lost them the Falcons game for sure. Okay. Also, Tristan Wirfs is injured for probably the first couple of games. I'm not exactly sure how long, but he's the best left tackle, in my opinion, in the NFL. He allowed one hit for the entire season last year. So if Baker has a little bit more pressure on him and they are not able to slide to the right for Gedeke and all that stuff, it's gonna change the entire perspective of the offense. Chris Godwin, who is leading the NFL in receptions once he got injured, is also probably injured or out for the first couple of games, or at least not himself for the first couple of games. That being said, Baker to me is legitimately now solidified a top 10 quarterback that gives me faith and gives me sturdiness, okay, at the quarterback position. I do think that the O-line, once healthy, has a pretty high ceiling because I think Graham Barton could be one of the better centers in football. Their backfield is awesome. Bucky Irving, Rashad White, Sean Tucker. They do have enough at tight end in Cade Otton, and their wide receivers. Emeka Egbuka gives them a boost for their depth if Godwin cannot play, or he's not himself. Like, I'm not like an Emeka Egbuka is going to be some game-changing receiver in the NFL, but I do think that he's going to be a good player that they can rely on and that he can play a similar role to Chris Godwin and all that sort of stuff, like, right away. So that's good. And, of course, they have Mike Evans. They have McMillan still. They have a bunch of receivers they can still go to. Defensively, I think their potential defensively comes down to the health of their secondary. Guys like Winfield and Dean, who haven't always been able to stay healthy. The development of some of their younger guys, like Morrison, for example, and I believe the other guy's Parrish. They drafted as well. He's more of a nickel player. And then their pass rush. Like, is Hassan Reddick still Hassan Reddick, or is he washed? Yaya Diaby, can he finish those sacks? Can Chris Braswell take a step forward? Their linebackers, I think, are basically the same as last year. Like, Levante's still awesome, but they replaced, was it Britt with, who's the other guy? I think, is it Walker? Who'd they replace? I don't know, some mid linebacker. Anyways, and then their D lineman they're really good. Vita Vea is awesome. Kalijah Cansey, he's also an X factor too. Like, he's part of that pass rush equation. Him and Hassan Reddick, can they kind of like evolve or come back to themselves and really give that spark that they need in these big passing situations so that Todd Bowles doesn't always have to blitz, right? Because it feels like people have figured out Todd Bowles' defense and they're just religiously attacking them over the middle of the field. They're just always creating big plays, like just against these zone blitzes. So they need to find a way to get to the quarterback without having to always blitz or rely on the blitz, because the defense last year was legitimately bad for like 99% of the season. So they're very good against the run, but they give up a lot of big plays in the passing game because they had some injuries, but also because like just their scheme, right? So the Bucs, I think they could still have top 10 offense. I do actually think their defense is going to be better this year because it was bad last year. And I think if some of those elements defensively can come together, and if they can prove to me that Liam Cohen's loss is not as big as I think it is, and they're all healthy by the end of the year. I mean, we didn't get to see this Bucs team with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans together, and now we have Emeka Egbuka. By the end of the season, if they can just find a way to win their division, find a way to squeak in, Baker's a great playoff performer. He's proven that already. Like, look at his numbers. They will not back down from anybody, and they have numerous Super Bowl champions across this roster that have played in big games, right? Evans, Godwin, Vita Vea, Levante David, Antoine Winfield, Jamel Dean, etc. So they can play in big games, and they're not scared. And Todd Bowles, for as much as I give him slack, he can put together a good game plan in the playoffs, specifically against some of the opponents that they may play, like the Eagles or the Lions. Now, the team they might not want to play is the Rams or the Niners. But, yeah, the Bucs definitely have that upside. Okay, next, we've got the Lions. Okay, so Detroit, this is interesting. I haven't really thought, so this is like right off the top of the head. I don't know where I'm going to differentiate Detroit here. So I have made it known recently that I am now a Jared Goff guy. So I'm a Jared Goff guy. I'm a Jared Goff believer. All right. Second, Dan Campbell, I believe in his culture and what he's built there. So whether he has no OC or no DC or whatever, I believe in the core foundation of the team. I also believe in the talent of the team. I believe in Sewell, and I believe in Gibbs, and I believe in St. Brown, and I believe in Laporta, and I believe in Jamison Williams, and I believe in Aiden Hutchinson, and I believe in Brian Branch, and I believe in all these guys. Jack Campbell. They've got so many good players. Like, they legitimately have an ace player at pretty much every position on their team. Think about it for a second. You can make an argument that they have a top 10 receiver, a top 10 running back, a top 10 tight end, a top 10 tackle. Really, the only position now is guard. Like, interior offensive line as a collective, they probably don't have a top 10 player there. That's pretty safe, right? Defensive tackle, I mean, McNeil's not top 10, but he's really good. Aiden Hutchinson is top 10. Jack Campbell is closing in on the top 10. Branch and Joseph might be top 10. Corner, I guess they don't have a top 10 guy, but DJ Reed is a starting CB1. So you look across their roster, there's not a lot of rosters like that where maybe 2 or 3 positions don't have a top 10 player. That's pretty ridiculous, right? So their floor, because of their talent, assuming health, is pretty high. Also, Jared Goff I think, gives them a floor. Like, you look at their division, Jordan Love, for as talented as he is, does not give the floor that Jared Goff does. You know what I mean? Caleb, the floor it's in the basement. And JJ McCarthy, we've never seen him play, right? So just in the division alone, Jared Goff gives them a very firm floor. And I think because he's a more experienced quarterback, he doesn't need a great OC as much as others because he is so experienced. I don't think it's like Jared Goff 6 years ago where he was so reliant on what the guy was calling. I think now he actually understands offense. And I actually gained a pretty big appreciation for Jared Goff as a player during that quarterback series that they released this offseason. So I'm going to put the Lions in contender. I think they're a little bit more of a flimsy contender. Like, I think that they could be a little bit of a paper tiger, so to speak. But I do believe in them at the end of the day. I think where they will be let down is in a big playoff game. I could see them getting out-schemed. I'm worried about how do these new OCs, DCs, coaching staff, they might get out-schemed by a better coached team than them. That would worry me a little bit. So, but I still think their talent is going to carry them to the playoffs. All right. So I have the Lions at the contender spot. And who knows? Maybe these coaches surprise me. I don't know. The Bears are next. See, yeah, the schedule is brutal, but I wouldn't expect them to win 15 games. Like, they won 15 games last year, the Lions. I'd expect them to win like 11. I'm not expecting... When I place a team in the contender, it doesn't necessarily mean that I think they're going to be the number 1 seed or the number 2 seed. You know what I'm saying? It means that I actually have legitimate possibilities in my head that they could actually go very far in the playoffs. The Bears, that's tough. I almost want to skip them for a second. Okay. So let's talk about the Bears and then we'll rank them. So right now I have the Bears as the worst team in their division. If you guys have been paying attention to Caleb news, Caleb Watch, he has looked awful, according to many reports and by my eye test. Also, he was bad last year, and Bears fans will not admit this because they don't know what a good quarterback actually looks like. The offensive line is pretty darn talented on paper. There's no denying that, especially interior now. You got Tooney, you've got Jonah Jackson, you've got Drew Dahlman, and then the O-line was already decent last year. Like, from a grading and pressure perspective, what hurt them so much was Caleb Williams, just as Justin Fields did, by holding the ball too fucking long. Excuse my French. Defensively, their D-line is okay. I don't think they have an ace pass rusher. I think Montez Sweat is good, but he's not great. I like Javon Dexter, as I expressed in my interior defensive line video. They brought in Grady Jarrett, who's still okay. He's still good, but he's nothing special. And Odenigbo kind of the same thing. He's okay. I do think Dennis Allen does help, though. Dennis Allen's a really good defensive coordinator when he's honed in. I would expect more out of Edmonds this year because of how he could be utilized kind of like a DeMario Davis in this defense, given their size. And then TJ Edwards is very good. Their safeties are solid. Brisker, hopefully healthy. Byard was decent last year. Their corners, Jalen Johnson. Stevenson's kind of inconsistent, but he's talented, and Kyler Gordon's good. So the secondary in the back half of the defense is really promising, but I'm not a huge fan of the defensive line. I think it's just fine. But that's a mid defense, coupled by an offense that has talent, Colston Loveland looks awesome in camp, apparently. DJ Moore. Rome Odunze is expected to take a big step this year, although I'm not sure. We'll see. I don't like their running backs personally. Like, I don't think Swift can run the ball that well. He has terrible vision. And Roshan Johnson's just not that explosive, but he's kind of like a David Montgomery for Ben Johnson. They have Cole Kmet as well. They have Zacchaeus. They have Luther Burden. They've got a lot of talent, but it's like, can they piece it all together? And just by my sense of like reading all the news and staying close to the training camp reports, it's like, it's kind of seemingly, kind of frustrating right now for Ben Johnson. Not everything's going their way. Not everything's clicking the way they would have hoped. The offense might not be as good as people think. And a lot of that comes down to the quarterback. So if the defense is mid and the offense is inconsistently good, I think that they're going to be the worst team in their division. And that's why I'll put them at mid at best. That might be extreme. I don't see them being very good this year. I think they're going to be mid at best. I think they're going to be at best 9-8, which I would categorize as mid. I think if you put a team at 9-8, they're probably like the sixth. Remember, 14 teams make the playoffs. So that would be just in or just out of the playoffs, which more likely just out. I think that's just the way I see it. I have 3 teams in front of them in their own division. So that's how it is. Thank you guys for joining. TB17 in the chat. JJ in the chat. Ben, what's up, bro? Thank you guys for joining in. Bears should consider moving on from Caleb if he doesn't prove it. I mean, they're going to give him at least 3 years. Thank you guys for the dislikes as well. But don't forget to Gronk spike the like button. That'd be helpful. Nate says, the Lions have top 10 guys at tackle and edge and the least important wide receiver role, to be fair, though. Jamison Williams is also pretty friggin' good. So just throw that out there. Okay. The Niners. The Niners are up next. Okay. So this one is going to be probably one where a lot of people disagree, or one where people just hate the team. I don't know. There's a lot of weird like Niners haters out there for some reason. I don't really know why. Maybe it's because they lose to the Chiefs. I'm not exactly sure. But I've got the Niners in contender. And I'll explain why. So I've kind of been rising on the Niners throughout the entire offseason. And a lot of it comes down to my belief fundamentally in their coaching. So Kyle Shanahan is a wizard, first of all. And second of all, Robert Saleh is a top 5 defensive coordinator in football. And I think he's proven even as a head coach to put together some of the best defenses in football. Okay? So there's that. Secondly, they have as many elite players as anybody in the NFL. From Christian McCaffrey to George Kittle to Trent Williams to Nick Bosa to Fred Warner, right? They've got a lot of ace players on their team and pretty much one in every single positional slot. Next, okay? I do expect their defense to be much, much better this year, especially by the end of the season. The defense the last 2 years, last year they were just not that good. And the year before that, they fell apart down the stretch because, and I think fundamentally, they have not had good coordinators. Steve Wilkes basically had to be stripped from the game planning process of the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Kyle Shanahan made that game plan from all reports. And by the time the fourth quarter came, and the defense played pretty damn good until like the fourth quarter. And when the fourth quarter came down to it, Steve Wilkes is calling those plays. It didn't exactly work out. Okay? So the last 2 years, haven't been a huge fan of their coordinating, their play calling, their game plans. I think Saleh fixes a lot of that. Okay? Next, I think their D-line is much better than people think, and I think it could be very much improved. I think Williams, who they drafted, is like a new Eric Armstead for them. He can play inside or outside. He's going to be a dominant run defender early, and I think he's going to get inside and rush the quarterback effectively. Nick Bosa is a superstar and basically the only good player on their D-line last year. I do like what I've heard about CJ West. We'll see what Collins is, but West has been kicking ass as well, and I'm really excited for Huff. In this defense, under Saleh, last time we saw him, he was like the best pure pass rusher in football. Like, pass rushing grades, per play. This is the reason the Eagles signed him, but it was in the wrong scheme, right? They were asking him to play more of an outside linebacker position rather than a defensive end position. So Huff and Boza, that's going to be scary on third down, along with those rookies, along with the depth that they already had, like Yetur Gross-Matos and those guys who actually played pretty well last year. Their linebackers, I expect big things out of D. Winters this year. I've always been a fan of him. I thought that signing Devondre Campbell last year was one of the dumbest things they ever did. And then apparently Nick Martin, the rookie again. Like, this could be like the Rams last year, where like a lot of these players are unheralded and unknown, but they could be coached up and tutored to be very good. And from everything I've heard, these guys are the real deal. So like Nick Martin, look out for him, but he's probably their third linebacker. D. Winters, I'm excited for. The corners like Green, I'm a really big fan of. Lenore, I'm a really big fan of. Mustafa at safety, I'm a really big fan of. I am a little bit worried about some of the depth in the secondary. Like, are they the same that they used to be? Specifically at corner, I would rather them sign somebody, but we'll see what happens there. They might like some of the guys more than I do. Safety position, they did bring in guys like Pinnock and Richie Grant, who have played starting roles on other teams like the Falcons and the Giants in the past, so we'll see what they do. But I just feel like the defense is going to be much, much better, specifically against the run. And then once they stop the run, they're going to get in those sub packages and they're going to feast on the quarterback because they have Nick Bosa. And then, the offense is going to take care of itself. They have Kyle Shanahan. Brock Purdy is just, I think, generally underrated by the normal NFL fan. I think Brock Purdy actually had a good year last year because he really didn't have a lot around him last year. He had Jawan Jennings and sometimes George Kittle, and that was about it. Ricky Pearsall was hurt for like half the year or shot. Okay. Ayuk was out. McCaffrey was out. McCaffrey looks great, apparently, so he looks back and healthy. Their O-line's pretty much the same as last year. They did get rid of Aaron Banks or lose Aaron Banks, but Aaron Banks to me is not an irreplaceable player. George Kittle's a stud. I love their receivers. Like, I honestly think getting rid of Debo makes them a better team because I think Ricky Pearsall is going to be really good. And, they have Ricky, they have Ayuk eventually, Demarcus Robinson. So I'm looking forward to their receivers. Their offense is going to be top 5 with Kyle Shanahan calling plays. And at least they do have a backup. Mac Jones is better than what they had last year. I'll say that. Ricky is not hurt, no. Ricky has been looking good at practice, apparently. But yeah, that's why I have them in the contender spot. I think their coaching makes a huge difference on defense. I think that they're just not going to be injured as much this year. They have the easiest schedule in football. I think everything is looking like they could get they could get that top spot in the NFC West. They could get a home playoff game, maybe even more than that. So yeah, don't sleep on the Niners, guys. They've got all the makings of a team that comes back in a big way this year. The Eagles, I'm going to put the Eagles in the contender spot as well. So the Eagles, obviously they're Super Bowl champs. They have, from last year, the best defense in the NFL. I think that they won't be the best defense this year, but I still think they will be in the top 10. So where I'm a little bit more concerned about the Eagles is the pass rush in general. So they don't have Josh Sweat anymore, and they don't have Milton Williams anymore. So those are two really good players. Who's going to replace that production? Hunt, Uche, Ajomo. Are those guys going to step up? Jordan Davis has been more of a role player, in my opinion, than anything else. Obviously, Jalen Carter is an absolute stud, but outside of Jalen Carter, they had Sweat and Milton Williams to be able to help them get that quarterback. And then Nolan Smith is really good, but Nolan Smith has never had 10 sacks in a season yet, right? So they don't have an ace edge rusher, right? They have good edge rushers, but no ace that they had last year. Josh Sweat was pretty close to that. So I think their pass rush is a little bit worse. I think also their secondary is a little bit worse. They lost Darius Slay, who still had a very good season last year as a CB2. And I don't really know who their CB2 is going to be this year. Is it going to be a Dory Jackson or is it going to be Ringo? They also lost Isaiah Rodgers, who was good last year too in a depth role, who's obviously going to start for the Vikings this year. So the Vikings clearly liked him quite a bit. Quinyon Mitchell is a stud. He'll be in my top 10 corners in the NFL. Cooper DeJean is one of the best nickels in the NFL. Blankenship is solid, but they don't have CJ anymore, who's that playmaker, that tone setter, 6 interceptions last year. Now they have a rookie in Makuba. So I just think their defense from a talent perspective is a little weaker. And now teams kind of know, they also have Nakobe Dean's injured. Okay, first round pick. They got in there Campbell. So Bond's amazing, but I feel like they're just a little weaker from a personnel standpoint. They should be very, very good, fundamentally sound, all that sort of stuff. But maybe their pass rush isn't absolutely ridiculous to the point where Fangio never has to send a blitz in his entire season. Offensively, I just think that last year, they were the 7th or 8th best offense in the NFL. And that was with a historic season from Saquon Barkley, who's arguably the best player in the NFL last year. He's probably not going to be the best player in the NFL this year, but he's probably still going to be pretty damn good, you would expect. The O-line is still the best in the NFL, in my opinion. Although I do think Mekhi Becton is a pretty significant loss for the explosiveness of the run game and the upside of the run game. I do think they lost a little bit there. Lane Johnson's a little bit older. Dallas Goedert, can he stay healthier this year? Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, one of them will miss a couple games, but I don't think it will be a huge deal. A.J. Brown's dealing with something right now, but he should be fine. The offense is practically the exact same. The only thing that really happened is they lost Mekhi and they lost Kellen Moore. The one concern about Kellen Moore is that I felt like the biggest difference between the Eagles' offense last year and the year previous was Kellen Moore's ability to get Jalen Hurts into good blitzing solutions. Jalen Hurts was arguably the worst quarterback against the blitz in 2023, and he became one of the better ones in 2024. I think that had something to do with Kellen Moore. Just me, just my opinion, but I'll throw that out there, okay? Because Jalen does love to hold the ball. And then Saquon, obviously, was the other dimension that took them over the top. So I do think they're going to have to throw it more just because I don't think that their defense is going to completely shut people down the way they did last year. And I do think that they're going to be in more games where they're going to have to throw it. But I still think they're capable of throwing it, but that's going to put more pressure on Hurts, who did not play well for most of last season until the playoffs. And that's going to put more pressure on the offensive coordinator instead of just calling inside zone for 90% of the game. So I still have them as one of the favorites in the NFC, arguably the favorite in the NFC. I just don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. So I don't have them in the Ringham category. But I do think they have a chance, obviously. They still have arguably the most talented team in the NFL. So those are kind of my concerns. I wanted to take more of it's not a punch or a negative for the Eagles necessarily, where I'm just trying to take more of a negative lens because the Eagles are seen as this juggernaut team. And I kind of want to give you a little bit more of a realism sort of perspective. So that's why I kind of talked about them the way that I did. All right. What else we got to say here? Okay. Anyone saying anything? Pats, what's up, man? Pat785, what's up, bro? If you guys haven't already, Gronk spiked the like button. We still got quite a few teams to go. The Raiders are up next. Okay, so the Raiders are interesting. Let's break them down. So you got Pete Carroll entering the fold. Love Pete Carroll. Geno Smith, who I think's arguably the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. You have Ashton Genty, who is a absolute juggernaut of a running back prospect. You have Brock Bowers, who's uncoverable. You have Jacoby Myers, who's damn good too. Apparently, Dante Thornton looks the part, looks pretty good. We'll see what he can bring to the offense with his speed on the outside. I wish they had one more proven entity at wide receiver. Their O-line is solid. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's bad. I think it's solid. Colton Miller got that extension. Good for him. I do think they have some quality depth, which always helps. I'm looking forward to Jackson Powers-Johnson at center this year. And the main question is, like, what does this Chip Kelly offense look like? Do they play with pace? Do they run the ball? You know, how does that, like, what are they going to be? Like, I kind of intrigued by that. But I think they'll be a solid offense. I think pretty average offense. Maybe a little bit better than that. Defensively, you look at their defense, and I just am concerned about a lot of these areas. I mean, linebacker, it feels like they don't have a real good linebacker. They've got a bunch of guys, but they don't have a guy. You know, a Landon Roberts at like 34. They have Jermaine Pratt, who fell off the planet, Devin White, who fell off Jupiter, and I don't know, like Tommy Eichenberg. Like, they don't have a linebacker. Safety, Jeremy Chin in, Trayvon Morig out. Not sure I'm a fan of that. Cornerback-wise, their best corner from last year, arguably Jakarian Bennett. Jakarian. He's not even starting. I don't know if that's a good thing or if that's a coaching staff preference. I don't exactly know. Kind of weird because their other corners are Eric Stokes, who I guess has flashed, but he's never really been very good. And then Darian Porter, who has a lot of potential as a rookie, but like he's a rookie too. So, and their nickel's not very good. Yeah, the defense, like their defensive line is Max Crosby and Malcolm Kuntz. Tyree Wilson is getting better, but their D tackle position is ass. Like Adam Butler is the only guy there. They lost Mr. Christian Wilkins, the dancer. I'm not a fan of the D line. I'm not a fan of the linebackers. I'm not a fan of the safeties. I don't really like anything about the defense. I like the scheme. I like Max Crosby. I don't like the defense as a whole. Maybe they could surprise me. Maybe. I think that they're the worst team in their division. So kind of like Chicago, how high is their ceiling? I think that they could surprise because there's this new element of a coaching staff that could revamp this team, and they could get more out of players that are unexpected, kind of like the Commanders last year. They could be sort of Commander-ish. There's a possibility for that. I just think that it's a lot harder to do when you have the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Broncos in your division. So I'm going to put the Raiders at mid at best. I think that feels fair. They kind of feel like the Bears to me. Next, the Packers. The Packers. So I love the offense. Like, I think potentially the offense could be pretty awesome. Golden is in there now, first-round pick wide receiver, along with Jaden Reed, who could take another step this year. I love Tucker Kraft. I think the O-line is really good. You know, the O-line is like potentially a breakout unit in the NFL this year. We'll see what Jordan Morgan can bring, what Aaron Banks looks like in this offensive line. We know what Elton Jenkins is, but he's now at center, which is a big thing, and Zach Tom at right tackle. They drafted some pretty good prospects too. So the O-line's really good. The run game's really good. Matt LaFleur's a really good play caller. Romeo Doubs does his thing at the X, you know, just running comebacks and back shoulders and go routes. And then Wicks is, I don't know. Christian Watson is running right now, so he should be back by like halfway, which could take this offense to a different level if they have Golden, Watson, and Reed on the field at the same time, because that might actually give them two legitimate man-beating receivers, which they have not had. Like, other than Christian Watson, they have not been able to beat man coverage when they have faced it. You look at the rest of the receivers, like Jaden Reed is legitimately the best receiver in football against zone coverage last year, number one, and he's like one of the worst against man coverage. So they're like a really weird offense that way. But I do expect them to be really good all the way around. I think Jordan Love could even take a big step forward if he just hits more of those gimmies and takes more of those gimmies, maybe even runs a little bit more, like uses his athleticism a little bit more. He definitely could have his best season in the NFL that we've ever seen. Defensively is where I'm like a little bit concerned. I think that they have a number of younger players that are pretty good. Like Edgerrin Cooper could be a superstar at linebacker. Their safeties are pretty good, I think, as a unit. It's led by McKinney, obviously. They did sign Nate Hobbs, who's a solid player, but they lost Alexander. That being said, how much has Alexander really played in recent years? I guess that's a debate. But their corner position was not very good previous to that. Their defensive line, they lost... who'd they lose? They lost somebody, right? They lost TJ Slayton, and I feel like they lost an edge rusher, but I can't really remember. But like, I don't know. They need Lucas Van Ness to step up. He hasn't been great so far as a first-round pick. They need Devontae Wyatt to step up and play more snaps, right? Rashawn Gary is good, but like, he needs some help rushing the quarterback. Kenny Clark was hurt a lot last year. Quay Walker is a dumbass, but he's really athletic. The defense, I think, is mediocre. Maybe a little bit less than that. Maybe a little bit more closer to 20 than like 16. So I think with Matt LaFleur, a really good offense, and a defense that has, I guess, like a higher ceiling, but I don't really know. I feel like they're kind of like they're a or a wild card. And I might have to change this one, but I'm going to put them in the... Bro, this is hard. I'm going to put them in the wild card, but that hurts. Okay. Let's go next. The Commanders. The Commanders are... Okay, so this is interesting. Like, is Terry McLaurin playing? Is Terry McLaurin not playing? I lean towards he's playing on the Commanders. The offensive line is good, maybe even really good this year. Laramie Tunzel at left tackle. Can he stop taking penalties? I guess that's a question. They drafted a first-round pick. Sam Cosmi should be back sooner rather than later. Running backs, I'm not a huge fan of. Apparently, they have this undrafted kid that's like the next coming of LaDainian Tomlinson, so we'll see what happens with that guy. I'm not a big Brian Robinson guy. I'm not a big Austin Eckler at 50 years old guy. Zach Ertz is 70 at tight end, but somehow caught like 800 passes last year. Their receiving core, watch out for Lane. The rookie might be able to replace De'Ami Brown. Some good things out of him from camp. Luke McCaffrey, they're expecting more from, but I haven't heard much from him. Debo looks fatter than fat, but he'll probably catch a bunch of screens. And Jaden is really good. Cliff is really good. I believe in the fundamentals of the offense. The quarterback, the play caller, the O-line. That's all I have to really worry about. And if Terry's there, they'll be a top 10 offense. Defensively, I don't love their defense. I think that their linebackers, I mean, is probably the strength. Frankie and Bobby. Frankie's really good. Safeties, I think, suck, to be honest with you. They lost Jeremy Chin, and they replaced him with... Who the heck they replace him with? Some guy from the Saints. I don't even remember. He's not very good, but their safeties suck. Their corners could be good if Lattimore is closer to Lattimore, but I don't know. Like, Lattimore might be washed. Like, I don't know. Trey Amos looking good in camp, so that's good news. Jonathan Jones there for the depth purposes. Mike as well, who can move inside, I think is better in that position, doesn't give up his speed as much. They could be really good at corner. They do have a lot of upside at corner, but they also, if Lattimore just isn't that good anymore, then they're not gonna be that good. Because I don't think they have a CB1 if that's the case. Defensive line-wise, I don't know. Like, Deron Payne needs to play a lot better. Von Miller is going to be Dante Fowler. Their edge rushers as a whole are not very good. Their run defense as a whole is still a question mark. They were not good last year. Newton needs to take a step forward. I just think they're like a bottom 10 defense still. They could be... Mikey is not a CB1, I'm sorry. They could be they could be better this year, but I don't know. Okay, so the Commanders. You guys know kind of where I stand. Like, I felt like last year was a miracle run. Like, they won so many close games. They won Hail Marys. You know, they won in the craziest ways imaginable. And they did it on the back of a team statistically that was not actually that fantastic, which is pretty crazy. They also faced one of the easiest schedules in football. So I think they're gonna like be on the fringe of the playoffs. I think they're probably gonna be in the wild card situation. Maybe they'll make it, maybe they won't. Yeah, they're bottom 10. I mean, they were bottom 10 last year. I think that the Commanders, I don't see the ceiling that other people see because I don't see the ceiling with the defense. And I also feel like their offense is a little bit too reliant on Jaden. I think it's a little bit too reliant on Jaden. And then I also wonder, like, are teams going to start to hone in on what they were doing last year a little bit more than they were the year previous? I'm not hating. It's just the way it is, bro. Like, they made the NFC Championship last year, but if you had me bet on what they would do this year, I'd probably say they make the playoffs and lose the first game. That's probably what I would say. If I had to bet on what their result of this season is going to be, I'd probably say the Commanders, they just make it and they lose in the first game. That's probably what I'm going to say. That's just the way I see it. I thought that last year was pretty fluky. I'm not going to lie. So that's where the Commanders are at. Next. Okay. We got the Cardinals, who is one of the more intriguing teams in the NFL. And I'm starting to wonder, what teams am I going to put in the category? Because I don't have any in that category right now. So the Cardinals. The Cardinals are also like a or they're a wild card team. So I think at the end of the day, I might have the Commanders in the playoffs. Okay. Now, you could argue, last year they were 8-9, I think, by the end of the year. Now, the biggest reason for optimism with the Cardinals is they were 8-9 last season, and they totally got better on defense. Like, Will Johnson at corner is really going to help, I believe, okay, along with Garrett Williams, who's already a really good nickel corner. Their defensive line is totally, totally better. Like, you got Josh Sweat, Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson, Walter Nolan, Darius Robinson, a former first-round pick, returns from injury. They're going to be so much better across the defensive front. I like what Jonathan Gannon was doing with that defense with a lot less talent. I think they could be a top-half defense this year. I do. I think there's a possibility for that. Their safeties are awesome. Their linebackers are a little suspect, but that's really the only weakness of the defense. The offense was top 10 last year by a variety of metrics, including ball possession, long drives, a lot of plays ran. They run the ball really well. They were second in yards per attempt. James Conner's a dog. Trey McBride's a dog. Marvin Harrison should be better this year, I would expect. I don't love their depth at receiver. I don't think Michael Wilson is a proper 2. He's more of a 3. I don't think they really have a 2, which is concerning. Their O-line is good, like well schemed and coordinated, but I do kind of have my concerns in drop back passing situations. Kyler Murray potentially could be awesome, but I think all we've seen is inconsistency over the years. I do think that he should be about as good as he was last year, which was a pretty middling quarterback. Maybe he'll be a bit better than that because I think that he'll have less pressure on him because the defense will be a little bit better. Now, as a whole, I'll put them in the category, but like I said, it's probably unlikely when it comes to predictions that I have the Vikings or the Packers. I might actually, by the end of the video, put them here, but we'll see. I want to kind of fill out all the categories. The Vikings or the Packers or the Commanders, like one of these teams, they're in the question mark tier, but one of these teams is probably not going to make the playoffs just based on the averages. Okay. Next, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers are absolutely. That's a lock. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, they made the playoffs last year. I think they won 10 games. They sucked down the stretch. They absolutely were pathetic, unwatchable. Netflix made us watch the Pittsburgh Steelers on Christmas. It ruined everybody's Christmas across the board, especially against the Chiefs. Unwatchable. Now, the Steelers' defense could be really good because they have the best front in football. And they might have the best front seven in football because I think Peyton Wilson is going to be a stud this year. He was very good last year when he got a chance to play, but they were hiding him behind some players. Now he's going to be unleashed, so I'm looking forward to Peyton Wilson. Patrick Queen, second year in the system, inconsistent last year, should be better this year, but that's just the type of player that he is, I guess. Defensive line-wise, though, TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, Herbig, that's like the best edge rotation in football. Then you've got inside Cam Hayward, the ageless, Benton, Harmon, pretty awesome right there. So the front seven is pretty ridiculous. The corner position also has a lot of potential. Slay, along with Porter on the outside and Ramsey at nickel. I like that. I don't think it's quite as good as Steelers fans think it is, but I think it is really good. And Ramsey playing in nickel is what I'm most excited about. Safety-wise, Elliott is good. I'm a little concerned about the other spot, but that's what happens when you trade Minka for Ramsey. But that's really their biggest weakness. So defensively, they're going to be top 5, I think. Offensively, I'm a bit concerned. Their running backs are all right, good, not great. We'll see what Caleb Johnson is. Jalen Warren is a good change of pace. Their tight ends, I like the depth and I like the possibilities of what Arthur Smith could do with Jonnu, his favorite player in football, Pat Freiermuth, and Darnell Washington. I'm looking forward to all that mixture and how they could use them in the different formations. But their receivers suck. I'm really worried about just getting open. I'm worried about teams just being able to play man coverage and blitzing Aaron Rodgers and just giving him so many issues because as good as Metcalf is, like, he's not really a great separator other than vertically. Like, I feel like he's great with his speed, but, like, he's not a crisp route runner. He doesn't run an extremely well-rounded route tree. So they need other guys like Calvin Austin or Roman Wilson to step up, like, and get open. Like, I'm a little worried, like, Jonnu doesn't get open. Freiermuth isn't really that twitchy. Rodgers himself, he's a sitting duck in the pocket. Like, he's accurate. He can still rip the ball, but he's scared to get hit, and he gets rid of the ball frequently too early because he's scared to get hit. And the O-line is kind of shaky. It's got some promise. It's got some upside. A lot of top-end draft picks. Broderick Jones, I'm not sure if he's good. I do think that Fontenot is pretty good, but we haven't really seen him play. Their center is pretty good. And Sayamalu's pretty good. But, like, I'm worried about the passing game big time. They're going to have to run the ball, screen the ball, play action. That's going to have to be the entire offense. And they're going to have to live and die by that because I think they're going to have a really bad drop-back passing game because I think that teams are going to be able to tee off on Aaron Rodgers because I don't think these guys are getting open very often. So I'm a little worried about that. So I think the inconsistency of the offense is going to really bother me. So I see them being like an 8-9 to 11-6 type of team. I would probably say they'll be 9-8 because Mike Tomlin doesn't have losing seasons. But that's kind of where I have them. 9-8, 10-7. I do think the Bengals will be the better team this year. I don't know how high the ceiling is either. Unless Rodgers just resurrects himself into being an absolute stud. Maybe that happens. I don't know. Maybe that happens. Okay. Next, the Buffalo Bills. We've got our second ring 'em team. The Bills will ring 'em with the Baltimore Ravens. So these are the teams that I think can win the Super Bowl. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, two best quarterbacks in the NFL. Offensive line for the Bills is probably a top 5 unit in football. Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown at left and right. James Cook, he will get paid. Don't worry. Really good player. I like their running back room with James Cook, with Davis. It's Davis, right? The big boy. And then they've got Ty Johnson, who's a really good third down back. Khalil Shakir does have an ankle sprain right now, but he'll be fine. Keon Coleman apparently is having a pretty good camp, so I'd expect more out of him. Josh Palmer's been a nice addition, apparently, during training camp. I would expect Josh Palmer to maybe help them a little bit on the outside. I've always liked Josh Palmer. It just kind of feels like he's never really truly become what you would think he would be. And then they've got a bunch of other guys like Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel. The list goes on. So they've got other guys. Dalton Kincaid, can he take that step forward? He's going to be an X factor. Like him and Keon Coleman feel like the X factors of this team. Can one of them become a stud player? Because I think Khalil Shakir, for what he does, is an awesome player. James Cook, for what he is an awesome player. But they need one of Coleman or Kincaid to be good. That's the question. Can either of those guys be really good? And even without that, as we saw last year, they scored 30 points and, more than any other team in the league consecutively. So they were a potent offense last year. They can run it on you, throw it on you. Last year, their screen game was one of my favorites to watch too. So yeah, the Bills offense is awesome. The defense, I think, will be a lot better than last year. Starting with the linebacking core being healthier, Matt Milano and Bernard inside. They also added Shaq Thompson for a bit of depth there. Still, hopefully, can play a little bit. He's been hurt a lot lately, but he knows McDermott's defense pretty well from his Carolina days. McDermott. Then defensively, you are on the defensive line. I think they're deeper, and Joey Bosa's healthy. Is Joey Bosa healthy? I don't know. We'll see. He could be good. We'll see. Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, of course, the leading dogs on the line, but they drafted TJ Sanders in the second round. They've got Mike Hoyt from the Rams to add size. They also added size in the draft with their third round pick. I think he's like a 6'6" edge. So they added some beef. Ogunjobi, I believe, as well. They added a D tackle for more size to help them against maybe the Ravens in particular. And then the corner position, they got Hairston, who I just hope is a good CB2 because Benford is a top 10 corner in football. So if they have Benford and Hairston, like last year, it felt like they didn't really have the quality CB2 play, and they didn't have a lot of depth at the corner position. Teron Johnson at nickel, Cam Lewis behind him, safety-wise. They've got a bunch of guys. Can somebody step up? Rapp's been pretty good. Can Bishop take that step forward? He was a second-round pick last year. Can he take a step forward this year? Hamlin, I don't want to see playing very much. I think if he is, that's not a good sign. Maybe he gets better because he gets healthier, but I don't know. I don't think so. But yeah, I think the Bills, they're going to have a better defense than last year. They're a deeper defense. I think they're going to have a better pass rush overall. I think they're going to have just healthier defense. And I think they're a little bit faster when you add a 4-2-8 corner. That's what happens. So the Bills, the Ravens, I think they're legitimately Super Bowl teams this year, and they actually got better than last year. The Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are, I think, a team. Because they have a lot of questions when it comes to the youth of their edge rushers, Pierce and Jalen Walker. They tried to get better there with Leonard Floyd as well, but Leonard Floyd wasn't very good for the Niners. Maybe he'll be better with Raheem Morris, where he played with the Rams under Raheem Morris. Defensive tackle-wise, I'm a little scared about, losing Grady Jarrett. They brought in Morgan Fox. David Onyemata's kind of old. So the D-line is pretty poor on the surface, but it could be good. James Pierce apparently is kicking everyone's ass at training camp, so that's good news. Linebacker, I think Caden Ellis is probably the most underrated linebacker in the NFL. Safety-wise, Jesse Bates is a stud. They did try to get better there, too. They added Watts from the draft out of Notre Dame, who was seen as a top 5 safety in the draft. And they also added Jordan Fuller from the Rams and the Panthers, who's a solid player. Played under Raheem Morris before. I don't mind him. He's solid. Corners. The corners last year, graded well, but I don't know if anyone would look at their corners and say that they're actually that good outside of A.J. Terrell. Mike Hughes did have one of his better NFL seasons. They signed him, but I don't know, man. So the defense is still pretty poor. I'd probably still evaluate it as a bottom 7 defense, being pretty fair. But the offense, I think, is probably top 15, top 12. I expect Penix to throw the ball around the yard. Their O-line is top 10. Bijan is a beast. Algiers, a really good backup. Can Penix unlock Kyle Pitts? Considering Kyle Pitts runs straight, vertical routes all the time, Penix can at least get him the ball. And it appeared that he got him the ball in that Washington game. But then you also have Drake London, who I think is the best alpha receiver that no one talks about. To me, he's the best number 1 receiver that nobody actually says is elite. That's kind of where I'm at with Drake London. Darnell Mooney's a really good 2. And even McLeod can play a bit. So the offense, I like Zach Robinson's scheme as well. It's a Ram scheme. They've got the whole Ram thing going on. I'm just not a fan of Raheem Morris as a in-game decision maker or really a culture builder. That sours me on the team. The lack of understanding of how good the pass rush is, how good the quarterback is, those are questions about the team that make them, they could be good. They could be better than last year. But there's also a realistic possibility that they could be worse if, Penix is just not good. I don't know. But, yeah. So, I have them at the category. Then, we've got the Seattle Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are also a team. Because I think their defense is elite on paper. I think that Mike Macdonald scheming up in year 2 a defense with Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy on the inside. I think that their D-line is one of the more underrated units. Hopefully Nwosu's finally healthy, but also Boye Mafe is pretty good. And you've got Jerron Reed, who had a good year last year. Jonathan Hankins, who was a big monster against the run. So they got pretty good depth. I think they also brought back Derek Hall, who's a sneaky depth rusher. So I like that. I like Ernest Jones and how he fit in the defense and how he helped them against the run. I like Julian Love a lot. I think he's a top 12 safety in football. They also drafted the most athletic safety in the entire league, or in the entire draft, I should say. So we'll see what he is. Kobe Bryant's decent too. But Witherspoon and Woolen is one of the better combos in the NFL. I'm a little worried about that CB3 spot, but the defense, with McDonald scheming it, getting that pressure going, expecting a leap out of Murphy from being the best D-tackle in his class, I think that they're going to wreck games, be much more strong against the run, and I think that's going to put them in good third down sub-package situations for Mike Macdonald to scheme it up. Offensively, they are worrisome because I think that Jackson Smith-Njigba and Cooper Kupp are both slot receivers, and one of them can't play in the slot. And I don't think neither of them has explosive speed. Valdez-Scantling as your lone vertical threat is scary. Sam Darnold behind a below-average offensive line, and also not even below average, but outright probably pretty bad, is scary. Because Darnold likes to hold the ball, and he's also not a quick-minded player. He's athletic. He's also gifted, but he's scared. He's scared. Kenneth Walker needs to be a beast. If Kenneth Walker is superhuman this year and they have a great defense, then they might make the playoffs. But I just don't trust them in a passing sense, an offensive consistency sense. And that's why I have them as a middling team, because I think they don't have a bad offense, but it's not good. And their defense is potentially great, but it's potentially great. We don't know that it's great. So I have them at, Okay, the New England Patriots. I have the Patriots in the playoffs right now, so I'm going to put them in the wild card. And I think that's pretty reasonable. Even if it's not by my account or my analysis, let's just take Vegas. Vegas has the Patriots favored in 11 games this year. They have the second easiest schedule in the NFL. Okay? Now let's break down the reasons why I actually think the team is good. First of all, Mike Vrabel is a really good football coach, and I think the key area where he separates himself is game management. I think he is one of the best game management coaches in the NFL, if not the best. Josh McDaniels is a brilliant offensive play caller, and I think as a whole, their coaching staff went from the worst in football to a maybe top 10 in the NFL. Okay? Then they have Drake May. And Drake May is the quarterback out of all the younger guys that I would pick to elevate into top 10 stratosphere in 2025. He has all the talent in the world. He's got a wicked arm. He can make plays inside or outside structure. And he carried an offense last year with the worst offensive line and arguably the worst skill group and worst play calling in the NFL. And he actually looked good. Okay? He's also a great runner, too. Led the NFL in yards per attempt last year. Running backs. I love the draft pick in Travion Henderson. He was one of my favorite playmakers in the draft out of Ohio State. He can catch the ball. He can block. He can run. That's a big role in Josh McDaniels' offense. Stevenson should bounce back behind an offensive line that's way improved. Okay, they have 4 new starters this year. They replaced Dave Andrews, who retired and was injured last year, with Garrett Bradbury. At left tackle, they picked the best tackle, supposedly, in the draft, Will Campbell, at number 4. And I think at least he'll be a very good run blocker right away. I'm not sure about his pass blocking yet. He's a rookie. Jared Wilson might start at left guard. He was the best center prospect in the draft. He's expected to start at left guard, replacing Cole Strange. Right guard, Mike Onwenu was their best player last year. He's the lone starter from last year. He's the best player on the line. And then right tackle, Morgan Moses, who's a NFL professional at right tackle, instead of Adrian Lowe and DeMontre Jacobs. We have Will Campbell and Morgan Moses. Also, Stephon Diggs has swag, aura, and he's still good at football. Also, we've got Kyle Williams, who can fly. Shout out to Phil in the chat from the draft. I do like Demario Douglas, and I think he'll take a step forward in Josh's offense. You still got Kayshon Boutte, who did some good things too, with the funniest name in football. Hunter Henry's an NFL good tight end. So the offense is, very much improved across the board. Offensive line, skill positions, all the way around. The play calling, all the way around. Josh always has good run games too, which is one of the more, underrated elements. I could see their play action and their run game being very good, and even the Drake sneakiness with his rushing could be a pretty effective thing for the Patriots. And defensively, they have one of the best corner duos in football with Davis and Gonzo, and I think they're going to play a lot of man coverage. The safeties, Jabril Peppers has played really well for the Patriots, but Kyle Duggar had a shit season last year, and I think a lot of that had to do with the role he was in and the coaching. I think he'll play better this year. Their linebackers are sneaky pretty good now. They made some nice additions like Robert Spillane and Jack Gibbons. Defensive line-wise, they have one of the best D-tackle duos in Milton Williams and Christian Barmore. So you look at Milton Williams and Christian Barmore, along with Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez, Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers. Those could be 3 of the best duos in the NFL at their positions. And then Harold Landry on the edge. Kayvon Chason had a breakout with the Raiders last year as a pass rusher type. You've got Keon White, who could have a breakout season. So yeah, the Patriots have a lot of upside. A lot of these guys are more not superstar talents or not household names. Even guys like Gonzo and Milton Williams aren't exactly household names, but they're very good players. And I think that a lot of people will come to know them this year. So I think the Patriots are going to be the breakout team of 2025. So that's why I have them in the wild card spot. The Cleveland Browns are a booty football team. We don't know who their quarterback is. We don't know if it's Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, or Shedeur Sanders. Their O-line, still good on the surface, but their tackles are suspect, to say the least. Jack Conklin is always injured, and DeJuan Jones is inconsistent or injured. I love David Njoku, but he had a bad year last year for his standards. Jerry Jeudy is good, but he hasn't consistently shown that he's a wide receiver 1 in this league. Apparently, Deontay Johnson looks pretty good. I don't know. We'll see. Cedric Tillman, he can play a bit. But with the quarterback play and a lack of a real running back, like, I'm not a huge fan of any of the running backs they had. Judkins is in trouble already. Sampson is whatever. I mean, Ford is whatever. I don't know, man. I don't love their running game. I don't love their running backs. I like Stefanski. The defense, I think that the defensive line could be pretty damn good this year. If McGuire takes a step forward and Graham is as good as his prospect profile would allow us to believe. They brought in Malik Collins for Dalvin Tomlinson. They have, of course, Myles Garrett. But JOK is out. You know, that's bad. He was excellent last year. He was a great linebacker for them. Cornerbacks, Denzel Ward is the best corner in football that nobody talks about. He's elite, and I don't think he's treated that way. Safeties are not great, in my opinion. Emerson already got hurt, I believe. But yeah, I think their defense is probably going to be top half, but I don't know exactly where they'll land. And their quarterback is bottom 5, without a doubt. Their O-line is shaky. I just don't see how this team is that great. I'm not going to lie. They're going to be in the top 5 picking this year, probably. Not to say that I would want that. I like the Browns, to be honest. I don't necessarily see it. Okay, the Texans. And guys, I'll answer some questions at the end. I'm just going to keep rattling these off. The Texans are next. I'm going to put them in the watch out category. I think they have some flaws, but I think that they're pretty close to being a true contender. First of all, the foundation of the team, CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans. That's pretty damn good. Second, you've got the Nico Collins at wide receiver 1, and you've got, that's top 5 receiver in football, and you have the best edge duo in the NFL. So when you think about those foundational elements, that's really, really strong. Okay? Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson. The skill positions overall are pretty good. Assuming Joe Mixon is healthy. Right? But I don't know if he is, because right now he's not. Nick Chubb is washed. I don't think he'll be anything. They need Woody Marks to do something if Joe Mixon is not going to be there early. Dalton Schultz is solid, but I like what they did at receiver. Like, they brought in Higgins from the draft. Is it Noel or Noel? Jalen Noel. Also from the draft. Christian Kirk is a good slot receiver. So they've got like 3 new receivers who might all be able to contribute and play right away. The O-line is shaky, and that's a big reason I don't have them in contender, because I think they're shaky on the offensive line. I think teams will still be able to take control of that, take advantage of that. I feel like the Texans' pass protection is still a worry in pure pass situations. There's only so much you can scheme around that. There's only so much you can play action and run the ball and keep teams off balance. Like, you're still going to have to block the Steelers, the Bills, the Ravens, all these teams, the Broncos. You're going to have to block these teams on 3rd and 7. I don't know if they can do that yet, so I got to see it, right? If they had an adequate offensive line, I might put them in the contender. Defensively, they're about as stacked and as good as it gets. They might have a slight problem with the size of their defensive line, right? Which is why I think they got hammered by the Ravens last year. But their pass rush is maybe the best in football. When they have that 4-man pass rush working, it's as dangerous as anybody, with Danico Autry on the inside, with Anderson and Hunter. Their linebackers, they have a million of them, and they're all really good, especially Al-Shair, Christian Harris, Toe is there too. Safeties, they brought in CJ Gardner-Johnson, which I think only makes them better. They've got Bullock, who's a ball hawk. They've got Jimmy Ward still, I believe. Their corners, Stingley and Lassiter, is as good as it gets. on the outside. So their defense is sick. They're fast. They can cover. They can get after the quarterback. So couple that with a good quarterback, and you've got a pretty damn good foundation. So the Texans are in the watch out category for me. The big question with them too is Nick Caley. Like, can he really make this O-line better, this scheme on offense better? Can they be a better scheme team? That will dictate their ceiling. The Chiefs are in the contender category. I think that there's a lot of things to like more about the Chiefs this year than last year. I think their receiving core is better. I think the O-line could be better. But I think there's also this element of like, how much longer can they continue to go deep into the playoffs, especially after losing a Super Bowl, where a Super Bowl hangover is entirely realistic. I mean, Kelsey is older than dirt. They do still have offensive line questions because it's going to be a rookie at left tackle and it's going to be an unknown at left guard. And they don't really have a running back that they can lean on or a run game that's that efficient. And the defense is kind of thin on the defensive line. So there are elements where you're like, yeah, I mean, like when Rashee Rice comes back and they have Worthy out there and they have Hollywood Brown and they have Kelsey, I mean, that passing game could be really, really good. Maybe Patrick Mahomes could get back to playing the way he was playing in 2022. In that case, they'll be a top 5, top 3, top 2 offense, right? But I don't trust the run game. And I still have questions about the O-line, but I do think the O-line and the receiving core is better, in my opinion. The defense, I do think the defensive line is a bit weak, especially at D-tackle. Ormond Lott needs to step up as a second-round pick. They're expecting a lot out of him. The opposite edge from Karlaftis is weak because Mike Dana and Ormenihue did not play well last year. Spags is a brilliant, brilliant defensive mind. I do think that their secondary, their corners are good and strong. They added Christian Fulton to the group that they had last year. Their safeties are solid, not fantastic. Their linebackers are excellent. I love their linebackers. I think they have, Nick Bolton, Leo Chanel, Drew Tranquil, very good group there. They're going to have a top 10 defense. There's no doubt about it. It's Steve Spagnuolo with Chris Jones, who, to be fair to Chris Jones, like, is he still going to be the best D-tackle in football? That's going to be tough. They're kind of asking him to be that because, like I said, the weakness of their defense is probably their defensive line and probably their safeties, right? So they need Chris Jones to still be Chris Jones. And maybe the Chiefs just look different this year, where it's kind of a transition year where maybe Chris Jones isn't quite as dominant as usual. Kelsey isn't quite as big of a part of the team. So that's going to be kind of a big thing to answer. But I still think the Chiefs have as good of coaching, if not better coaching than anybody. And they're going to have a good top 10 defense and a top 10 offense, in my opinion. So that's a contender. I don't think there's anything else to be said about that. Next, you have the Dallas Cowboys, who I think are the Dallas Cowboys, we'll see what happens with Micah Parsons. I expect him to sign eventually. I just don't think the Cowboys will let him go. So he'll be forced to sign. I think Dak has proven to be a pretty good quarterback when he's healthy. I do think their receivers and their receiving core and their passing game is going to be pretty fun to watch. CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, that's pretty potent. Jake Ferguson's a good tight end, really good after the catch last year. Jaden Blue, I think eventually will be their running back. That would be my call. I think Jaden Blue will be the guy eventually. Okay, complemented by some combination of Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, or whoever else. The O-line is a bit suspect, especially if Guyton's injured. But they do have some young, intriguing elements like Guyton, like BB, like Booker. It's a little bit suspect, but I count on the Cowboys' development with their offensive line to be adequate. I don't think they're ever going to have a terrible O-line because they're usually well coached on that front. Defensively, they have one of the best pass rushes in football, led by Micah Parsons, Dante Fowler, who had 10.5 sacks last year. I do like Enzaraku. I think that potentially, one of these second-round picks can take a step forward. Whether it be not Golston, Sam Williams. And last video, I forgot who Sam Williams was. And this video, I'm forgetting who the other guy is. They have 2 second-round picks. I forgot who the other guy is. Cowboys fans. Adigizua is awesome. I hate their D-tackle depth chart. other than Odigizua. I think it sucks. Linebackers, Overshown is maybe a top 10 linebacker in the NFL, but he might not be playing till November. So Matt Eberflus is going to have to figure out that position, which is his favorite position, and it's his developmental position. So we'll see what we get out of that. I think the Cowboys also have Solomon Thomas, too, at D-tackle. Cornerbacks, is Diggs healthy? Is he not? Bland is good. Diggs is good when he plays, but is he going to play? Then, they added a third-round corner who I liked, Revel. Safeties are solid. Hooker is the better of the two. I think the Cowboys, across the board, really good pass rush, really good passing game. Run game, suspect. Run defense, suspect. O-line, suspect. Coach, suspect. But they have elite players in some key spots. They have a good-ish quarterback. That should be good for an environment to maybe compete for a playoff spot. That's what I would say. Next, we have a few left. The Chargers. Chargers. Oh boy. Wild card? Wild card. Maybe watch out. I'm going to put them in wild card. This bothers me because I don't know if I'm buying too much in the Hall of Fame game, but I just like the way the Chargers look. I don't know what it is. I just kind of like it. I like the feel of the Chargers. I like their physicality. I like their O-line. I like the young receivers, potentially. The Smith kid, Lambert Smith or something like that. He looked pretty good. Trey Harris could be pretty good. So if one of those guys can work out, their receiving core should be better than last year. Hopefully Quentin Johnson doesn't have to catch big passes in the playoffs. Ladd McConkey is a stud. I think Hampton and Harris will be good eventually when Harris returns. But Hampton could be the guy early. But Herbert's awesome, and he's got a good offensive line, and he's got a run game. Like, that's enough for me, right? Defensively, they're very well coordinated. They've got very good safeties, very good linebackers. Their D-line is a bit weak. I think Mac is still really good, but I'm a little worried about the interior especially. And the corners are young. I think they've got decent depth there, but I don't know if they have like a true stud corner. And that's kind of annoying. Harbaugh is a really good coach. I don't know if in the playoffs he's the guy to make the difference because he's not, they don't have the scheme, especially on offense, that really gets me going. But in terms of establishing a floor, it's a really high floor because you've got Herbert and Harbaugh, and you got a good offensive line. So the Chargers should win at least 9 games. That would be my stance, The Jets, they're booty. I don't like the fundamentals of this team. Aaron Glenn, I'm not a fan of his stubborn defensive style. I don't love Justin Fields. I think he blows. The offensive line is young and promising, but still we need to see it. The receiving core is shit outside of Garrett Wilson. Shit. Okay? Shit. The running backs, honestly, are overrated. Like, I think it's fair to say Breece Hall is overrated at this point. Defensively, I think their D-line has a couple really good players. Quinnen is awesome. And his brother Quincy behind him is awesome. And they have good linebackers. Sherwood and Quincy are awesome. McDonald's good. Jermaine Johnson still could be good, but I don't know. He's coming off a major injury. Their D-tackle group is not great beyond Quinnen. What? Hello? Hello? Okay, so this is my computer, guys. Should I stay on this to finish this? Or should I try to reset quick and come back? Maybe I can reset and come back. I don't know why my mic isn't working. It's not, it says it's on. Let's see. Weird. I've never had this happen before. Huh. Yo, this is stupid. Okay. I guess I'll finish. Maybe I touched a button. Yeah, maybe I did touch a button. Hold on. Okay. Hello. Is that working now? Yo. I think it's working now. I think I maybe did touch a button by mistake. That was weird. I'm sorry, guys. I've never had that happen before. Okay. Thank you. Who was that who said you touched a button? Says, shout out to him. Okay. Carolina Panthers. Okay. Sorry, guys. Carolina. Okay, so this is tough. I'm going to put Carolina in the I'm sorry. And I kind of hate doing this. I kind of want to put them higher. But again, like that's what the I'm sorry category is for. Because I want to put them higher, but I can't because I don't like the defense. I think the defense is like borderline horrific. Still. When you look at the defense, they have Derek Brown. They have J.C. Horn. And not a lot else. Trayvon Morig, maybe. I just don't believe in the defense. I need more from the defense. They don't have an edge rusher that I believe in unless one of the rookies can step up in a big way. The D tackles are solid with Derek Brown there. You know, they still have Ashawn Robinson. They brought in Bobby Brown and Tershawn Wharton. They have Wonham and Jones, the two Vikings edge rushers, but like they're neither of them are go-to guys. The Panthers probably will outproduce this ranking, in my opinion, because I think their offense is pretty good with Canales calling plays. Bryce Young, I expect to take a step forward this year. I like the offensive line. I like the running backs, Hubbard and Dowdle. And I do think they have legit receivers now. Like McMillan's going to be a 1 in this league. Red zone target, downfield presence. He's a go-to guy. And they have Thielen and apparently Hunter Renfrow from the slot running routes. They got Leggett and Coker as well. So big plays from Leggett. Coker's a well-refined route runner from inside or out. I could see the Panthers being 6-7 wins. Maybe 8. In that range. I want them to do better than I kind of have them ranked here. It's just that I think the defense has holes at corner, suspect linebacker play, not a great pass rush. So that's why I have the Panthers where I have them, honestly. The Tennessee Titans. The Titans, I'm also going to put in the I'm sorry. Now, the Titans, I think, are... Cam Ward is going to be a stud. So that's kind of part of my projection. I think they're going to win 5 or 6 games, maybe 4. But I think Cam Ward, behind an offensive line that I think will improve, is going to give them a decent floor compared to the Saints, Browns, and Jets. None of those teams have a quarterback, in my opinion. Okay? The Titans have a quarterback. The Titans have an offensive line that I think will be pretty good. Skoronski is, going to be, I think, developing into a really good guard. Latham, a really good tackle, potentially. Both guys first-round picks. Right guard Kevin Zeitler was top 5 last year, according to PFF. He was graded 3rd. They stole him from the Lions. Center, Cushenberry's solid. And then left tackle, Dan Moore gives them a little bit better left tackle play. So, plus they got a really good O-line coach in Callahan. I think they're going to be like a good O-line with a solid running game from Pollard and Spears. Enough from Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, Okonkwo. I don't love their receivers. Like, I wish they had another guy that they could go to beyond Tyler Lockett at like 50. But I feel like Cam Ward, with a solid run game, a good offensive line, they're going to stay in games. And defensively, they should have a good run defense. That I know. Because they have Jeff Simmons and they have Tavondre Sweat. That's a brick wall. Okay, so they have those two guys. And they also added some beef on the edge. So Draymond Jones, Jahad Ward, those guys are massive. So it's going to be hard to run on the Titans. And they've got decent corners. Like if Snead gets his head out of his ass, he's obviously great. McCreary's pretty good. Their safeties are meh. I mean, Amani's a good playmaker. Amani Hooker had 5 picks last year. Their linebackers aren't very good. Their pass rush isn't very good. Arden Key's their real only good pass rusher, I guess, and Simmons, but they lost Landry. I just think that with Cam Ward, it's going to improve the vibes of the team. They're going to constantly be fighting for every inch. There's going to be other teams that give up down the stretch. They're not going to give up. I think they're going to be solid as a passing team, solid as a running team, a good run defense. That's just my projection for them. I don't think they're good. Don't get me wrong. I do think they're the worst team in their division, most likely. But I think the quarterback's going to be really good. I don't believe in the coach, which is a big deal. I don't believe in Callahan, the son, as the head coach. The Colts. The Colts, I think, are mid at best. The Colts don't have a quarterback. Anthony Richardson, I guess, has some unforeseen upside because he's physically a behemoth and he has a cannon, but he is so inaccurate. It's ridiculous. The O-line is pretty good. Jonathan Taylor is awesome. Ty Warren could be, I think he's going to be awesome. Great yak dimension. Josh Downs and Michael Pittman with Mitchell and Pierce is a really good receiving core. If this team had a quarterback, they'd probably be a playoff team. You got Steichen calling plays. You got Eberflus. Not Eberflus, sorry. That was their former guy. But they have Lou Anarumo on defense. I think they got pretty good coaching. Defensive line is good. They've got one of the better D-tackle duos in Buckner and Stewart. They've got, I think Laitu Latu could be a breakout defensive player this year at edge. And linebacker Franklin is a killer on the inside. I'm not sure about their corners. I don't think Tarvarius Ward is the same player he used to be, but they did sign him for some help. Moore, I was going to say Kellen Moore. Kenny Moore is not he's still a good player, but he is getting old. Their safeties, they signed Bynum. I like Cross. I think their roster is good. The concern is just that they don't have a quarterback. And I think that their pass rush needs a little bit more fire from it. I think their corners are a little So that's kind of how I look at the Colts. Like, I think they'll win like 7, 8, maybe 9 games in that range because they've got pretty adequate coaching and a pretty solid roster, right? The Jacksonville Jags. Jacksonville. I think... Okay, Jacksonville's tough. Because I could see a pretty decent ceiling for the Jags. Kind of like the Falcons. So, I'll put the Jags at because the offense could be really good. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has had flashes of some good stuff. Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas is fucking sick. I mean, that's unguardable. And then you've got De'Ami Brown and Brenton Strange and some interesting running backs. We'll see if ETN can get his head out of his ass or if Tootin or Bigsby can do something. But we saw what Liam Cohen did to the Bucs with the run game, with the O-line, with the screen game. I think there's going to be a lot more gimmies for Lawrence. And on top of that, Lawrence can sling the ball. If he does anything well, he throws it deep well. So he might miss some of the easy stuff every once in a while, but I think that they're going to get some screen plays just to lift the floor of the offense. Defensively, I'm a little worried. But they do potentially have a solid unit. Like, their linebackers are pretty good, Oluokun and Lloyd. Their edge rushers are pretty good in Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen. Their D tackles are Can Eric Armstead still bring something? The safeties are bad. The corners, Tyson Campbell has played really well in the past, but he's inconsistent. And they signed Jordan Lewis, who's solid, but their secondary is pretty bad. Like, if I were to rank their secondary, they're probably bottom 5 in the NFL. So they'll give up a lot of points, but they might also score some points. They kind of feel like the Falcons of the AFC, and they're in a weak division. So I could see them being like a 7, 8, 9 win team based on the offense. Okay, that is the list. We're going to kind of order them here in a sec. Rick says, on behalf of the 2026 draft, I hope Trevor Lawrence proves to be overrated once again this year. Just my luck, though. Travis Hunter will lead them to the wild card. The idea of Trevor Lawrence is better than the reality. I would agree with that. Taken says that we have good corners, but not good safeties. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a chance for the Jags this year to show a little bit of potential, especially on offense. They should be a fun team. Kubler says, how do you know Ward is going to be good, but you don't have a clue on JJ? I would lean towards JJ being average to like around there. Cam Ward's a first overall pick. I scouted both players. So my projection is based on my scouting. What I also love about Cam Ward is his intangibles. I just feel like Cam Ward has the best intangibles of a quarterback that I've seen since Joe Burrow. Like his work ethic and his like command and swagger is off the charts. Like, I just believe in his belief, if that makes sense. So I think he might struggle as a rookie. Joe Burrow struggled, but I think eventually he'll be a good player. That's just my stance. I think JJ, a lot of what he did in college was also based around a great team. So yes, he has a great team in Minnesota too, but a lot of his success was he didn't even have to throw the ball a lot and they still won. So that's like, we still need to see this, you know? Okay, so let's order this. We got the Ravens and the Bills. I think I'm fine with that. Then contenders, we'll go Eagles, Chiefs, Niners, or Lions. I mean, either way, I'm cool with that. Watch out. We're going to go Rams because they were the closest to being in the contender. Then we're going to go... That's actually tough. See, the Bengals are weird because the Bengals could easily like go to the Super Bowl, but the Bengals could also miss the playoffs. I'm going to go Texans. Then the Bengals, then the Bucks. Wild card, strongest. The strongest, like, safest team is the Chargers to me, I think. We're going to go Vikings or the most volatile. I'll have them. Patriots will be last. I'll have the Vikings ahead of the Packers. Okay, we'll go like that. Commanders, yeah, okay. I'm going to have Cardinals first. I'm going to have Steelers second. I like this order, actually. I'll have Cowboys third. Seahawks, Falcons, Jags. Mid at best, Miami. No, let's go Chicago. Miami, Raiders, Colts. That's fine. I'm sorry. Giants last. Or Titans last? I don't know. Panthers first, though. And then Booty, Saints last. Browns second last. Jets third last. There it is, guys. There it is. Could I do a video on the depth of all teams without their starters? So what do you mean by that? Like evaluating every team's depth? Like second team? Is that what you're asking? I'm definitely doing roster rankings at some point. But that takes into account starters. But that's my honest opinion, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, Gronk, spike the like button. Subscribe, don't be a jabroni. And we will see you in the next video. More rankings coming throughout the offseason. 2025 NFL season is almost here. Let's go. Peace.